So back in Vietnam, I thought Dalat was going to be my favorite place. Boy was I surprised when I got to Mui Ne. Now we didn't spend a lot of time wandering around Mui Ne, but we did spend a lot of our time in this hostel called Long Sun. The first thing they did was show us to our lockers. We got to pick each locker depending on if it was full or not. I got the one with the stormtrooper on it. Now this place was really chill. Asia asked if she could paint her locker, and if you look here, you'll see that a lot of people who stayed here got to paint up their lockers. Apparently every so often they'd wash them off and start again. It was kind of a cool place. Now this was the first time that we didn't stay in a dorm or a hotel. That middle tent there is actually the one that I stayed in. And I gotta tell you, sleeping on the beach, very peaceful. The beach itself was kind of nice too. It was a little dirty, but I mean that's just kind of how Vietnam is. There were these little crabs that we kept chasing around, and actually this little dog here followed us around the entire time we were on the beach, chasing them around too. He kind of wore himself out. Cute little guy. Now remember how I said that the beaches are kind of dirty? That's this guy's job. This guy will ride up and down the beach every single day and pick up garbage. It's kind of cool that he does that, but the battle's kind of an uphill one. After we got there, Cindy and I started walking down the beach. We were picking up garbage and just kind of seeing what had floated up to shore. And that's when we found this. We found this nice empty bottle. I found a cork at my favorite restaurant back in Saigon, and we filled this bottle with sand. I didn't know it yet, but Long Sun was going to be my favorite place I visited in Vietnam, and I'm so glad I was able to bring this back. So we're walking down the beach, and I start to notice that there's a ton of driftwood just kind of lying around. So I figured if I piled it up, dug myself a little hole, we could have ourselves a bonfire that night. I go into the hostel to ask if it's okay if I were to start a bonfire. I walked up to this staff member named Robbie. Really cool guy. And this place is very chill. You're going to realize very soon. I walk up to Robbie, and I'm like, hey, do you have any way that I could start a fire, like maybe a lighter or a torch or something? He goes, sure, yeah, what do you need, like, kerosene? Okay, yeah, do you just have kerosene just laying around? They're like, yeah, we do bonfires every Tuesday. Here's the only thing, don't use all of it, okay? And I was like, yeah, okay, no worries. So he gives me this gallon jug about halfway full of kerosene. I go to the fire, and I kind of douse it a little bit. And we had ourselves a nice fire. To Asia's credit, she is the one who started it, and we got it roaring pretty good. So we were just kind of out there enjoying the fire when Robbie shows up and shows us that the smoke from the fire is pouring into the hostel. He comes over to the fire and he's like, guys, look what you're doing. You're smoking everybody out. Like, what are we supposed to do in there? Look at this fire. If you guys had it down there or by the beach, this wouldn't have happened. And we're sitting there like, oh man, dude, we're so sorry. We can kick it out. Like, we didn't mean to cause any disturbance or anything. You know, we just wanted to have ourselves a nice fire. This is when he grabs the kerosene and he goes, nah, don't worry about it. And throws the kerosene on the fire. Just ignites the thing again. And he turns and he looks at us and he goes, I like fire. The place was really chill, and finally when the fire did die down and we kicked it out and put it out and everything, we went into the hostel. We sat down to go talk with a bunch of people, and every time I sat down I would apologize for what we had done. Hey, you know guys, sorry about that fire earlier. I didn't mean to smoke you guys out. Every single time I said that to someone, they would say, hey, don't worry about it. That was a moment a little bit ago. It's not happening now. No one's worried about it. No big deal. Long Sun was like the chillest place on earth. I know I've only been to America and Southeast Asia, but that was the chillest place I'd ever been. And I miss it so much. So a few days go by and we're just having ourselves a good time. I met a few people there that really stuck with me. One guy named Mike and one guy named Roland. There was this night that Roland and Mike and I were sitting around and we were just kind of hanging out. And they rolled a spliff and we're all sharing. And we got into a religious conversation. Now, Roland is a religious teacher, but he's also an atheist. Mike is a chef, a heavy drinker, and he has a problem with the theory of evolution. This was one of the funniest religious debates I think I'd ever had in my life, with Mike screaming out, you tell me when a cat can evolve into a dog, I'll believe in evolution. And Roland and I trying to explain to him that that's just not how that works. It was a really good time. The people at Long Sun were harmless, and just a blast to be around. So there I am a few days later, just kind of kicking it. I'm laying on the beach, and I look up, and all of a sudden, a herd of cows comes out of nowhere. I sprint back and grab my camera, and I took a picture of them. Now, the cows there aren't injected with a bunch of hormones, so they're kind of skinny. But it was just kind of weird to see a bunch of beach cows just kind of pass by as we're all just sitting there. Now, we were at Long Sun for about a week and a half. And this is when we get into the story that everyone wanted to hear. Long Sun had about 30 plus people staying there all at one time. And there was this one night that we all got into groups about 7 or 8 people. And we had to split off randomly and play as a team against other teams to try to win some bottle of vodka that apparently tasted like crap. Either way, they split us off into groups, and the idea is one person volunteers, and then they have to earn a point for their team. Whoever earns the most points, they win, right? So I stand up and I volunteer for the first challenge. The first challenge is to grab a coconut as fast as you possibly can and bring it back to the person in charge. So I sprint back to my table as there was a girl there who was drinking coconut. I grab the thing and I run back, and there's a guy just a little bit faster than me getting back to the headmaster. And I run as fast as I can, and I hit this guy. And I hit him hard. I hit him so hard that he flies back a little bit and skids on his back backwards. And he was laughing. Everyone was laughing. The dude gets up, shakes my hand, and he's like, "Good hit, dude." I still lost. I didn't get the coconut into her hands as fast as he did. But it was cool to lay the guy out. A few challenges go by, and one of the challenges gets a little different. We hear the headmaster say, 2 girls and 2 guys from each team must kiss. The girls must kiss the girls, and the guys must kiss the guys. Well, I had very attractive girls in my group, and I'm sitting over there looking at them as they're kissing each other. All of a sudden, this French guy ends up right in my face as I'm looking, and I turn and I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. I kiss this guy. We were apparently not fast enough, and we didn't win. There were a lot of different challenges. Some of them kind of dumb, some of them were trivia that were kind of like, what? How is anyone supposed to know that? But really, in the end, I think the group who won the alcohol were the actual losers. Apparently, it tasted like dirt. The whole experience was just a giant party, and it was so much fun. I just want to go back so bad. I've never been so drunk in my life than when I was at Long Sun. And not that that's a good thing, but I just feel like there's a lot of stuff that I don't remember about that place. So it's our last day there, and I decided to go on one of the hostel tours. Now, hostels will do tours for people, you gotta pay for them, and then as you go, you gotta pay for stuff along the way. They're kind of a ripoff, but it was a lot of fun, especially since I was told that I would get to go to the sand dunes. And now I grew up in Oregon. I grew up on the sand dunes, and I loved it. I wanted to go see it. These sand dunes, they were okay. It was more just a pile of sand in just kind of the middle of nowhere. It wasn't like Oregon coast sand dunes. And they wouldn't even let us ride the quads. In order to ride the quads, you had to pay like a ton more money. It's kind of BS. Up next, we went to this place called the Fairy River, and there was a place where you could go ride ostriches. This is kind of the part of Vietnam that I don't like. When they put animals in cages, they kind of don't treat them very well, and this guy looked like he was in a lot of pain. I don't know if he was dying, but his head just stuck straight up in the air. Didn't seem like he was doing very well. I did get to take a couple pictures of this little lizard, though. He was kind of a cool guy. Now, the Fairy River was long. It was interesting, don't get me wrong. There was a lot to see along the way, but only really for the first part. It kind of got to a point where there was nothing but rocks and trees. And don't get me wrong, they were pretty, but it was kind of just more of the same stuff. And there came a point where I was like, what exactly am I walking for? Especially since the water was really slippery and kind of smelled like old fruit. I wasn't exactly sure what I was looking for, or what I was expecting at the end. It wasn't until I started asking people as they'd pass by, what is at the very end? You know, I'm kind of curious. And they said that there was a waterfall back there, which got me really excited. I just took a lot of pictures along the way. There was this palm tree that fell right across. The water was getting pretty deep too. I think it got up to my hips at one point. As I got closer and closer, there was a lot more vegetation, and I was getting ready for this waterfall, and then I turn the corner and I find it. This like 1 meter waterfall with a tire down at the bottom. Let's just say it wasn't one of the more fascinating things I'd seen in Vietnam, and the trek on the way back was kind of more of the same. After that, we went to the fishing boats. I had no idea how many people stayed out in these boats and fished all day. Essentially what they do is they fill these little rafts or fill these little boats. They'll then come to the shore and throw all the things they've caught onto the shore, and then at the end of the day, they'll pick up as much as they need and they'll go home. There was a bunch of beach cows here too. Yeah, I just got my septum today. It's like a pretty big deal. The cows just had so much personality in their faces, it cracked me up. Now the boats were really cool. It was really interesting to watch the people fish and see what they did with this. I just never seen so much sea life on a beach. These little girls down here were dabbing, so I went ahead and got a picture of them. Now, after some of these fishermen are done, what they'll do is they'll take some of the stuff home, they'll cook themselves, or they will sell what they got to the markets nearby. Some of the catches are really big. These lobsters were as long as my arm. After that, we went to another sand dunes. These were called the red sand dunes, and though they weren't exactly red, they were really cool to look at. I got a picture of this girl who was on the adventure with us. Very cute, very tall, and I like them that way. There wasn't really much to see. It was kind of just a big red desert, but it did make me feel kind of like home again. Now after this point, we went back to Saigon, as it was Cindy's time to go back home. She was only going to be there for half the time that myself, Jake, and Asia were going to be there. So we had a lot more adventure, and it really kind of sucked to see her go. She gave me this, which apparently she got at the market, and it apparently symbolizes a happy spirit, which she said I very much reminded her of. For a long time, I had no idea if that was the case with this thing, if it really did symbolize a happy spirit. But I was happier believing that that's what it was. And it turns out, that is exactly what it is. Now after we let Cindy off at the airport, there was a giant football game. Vietnam versus Malaysia. Apparently it was the finals, and Vietnam won. Being there in Vietnam, watching the parade, watching the excitement on everyone's face after they'd won the game was absolutely incredible. I'd never been in such a part of a country where they take sports so seriously, and it was such a happy day for everyone. I don't think a single person stayed inside. We stayed in Saigon for a couple days, but then right after that, we went to Nha Trang. And the first thing to visit was Vin Pearl Land. Now Vin Pearl Land is kind of like the Vietnam version of Disney World, except it's very cheap and a lot smaller. There were castles and Christmas trees and Ferris wheels everywhere. This place was beautiful. We got together with a couple people that we'd met in Long Son, and we were traveling around with them for quite some time. It was really cool getting to know people on the way, and you'll hear more about our friends later on. After Vin Pearl Land, we stopped in the Nha Trang markets for a little bit, and I wanted to get some pictures of their cigarette boxes. These cigarette boxes are kind of hardcore. In America, our cigarette boxes just kind of look like a logo. Marlboro, Camel. It's just kind of a logo. Everyone smokes out in Vietnam. And because of this, because it's so cheap, they plaster pictures of dead babies or awful rotten lungs or people who can't breathe. And it doesn't stop a single person. You'll see people pull the cigarette box right out of their pocket, dead baby just on it, and they'll pop a cigarette in their mouth, light it up. Doesn't stop them at all. It's not even a thing they think about. It's just kind of put me off every time. Now the part of Nha Trang that I got to see was really cool. I got to go to this little market, there was some sake, there were these cool little seed drinks. I had a really good time. Until I went to bed that night. And I woke up with a fever of 104. Apparently when I was in Mui Ne at Long Son, my favorite place, I got bit by a mosquito and I came down with dengue fever. Now if you don't know, dengue has a few strands, and some of them are deadly. I had no idea what was going to happen to me, and there is no cure for dengue fever. You kind of just have to ride it through. I spent the entire 7 days that we stayed in Nha Trang in that bed. And after the trip was over, we were headed up north to Danang. This is when we get into my worst Vietnam experience ever. So we get on this train, and I'm feeling very ill. The idea was to take a sleeping pill as soon as we got on the train and just crash all the way through it. From Nha Trang to Danang on this train took about maybe 6 to 8 hours to get there. So I figure if I just sleep the entire way, I'll be alright. So I take the sleeping pill and literally nothing happens. Now if you notice in these pictures, you'll see I'm wearing a giant blanket, I'm wearing a jacket, I'm wearing another jacket with the sleeves over my legs, and I got sandals on. And I'm right next to this chick that I've never met before, just some random Vietnamese girl. Now at some point this random Vietnamese girl, she stands up and she walks away, and she's gone for about 20 minutes. And I'm sitting there trying to sleep, and I'm looking around, and I see Jake and Asia are just totally passed out. Everyone else on the train is passed out, and I notice that some of the people have taken the 2 seats, and they're sleeping in them very comfortably. And I figure if this girl's gonna be gone, maybe I'll do the same thing. So I lay down, and I try to get comfortable, and I notice underneath her seat are a couple boxes. Now, it must have been my state of mind that I was in, being very sick, but for some reason I thought, in my head, that this lady had brought bombs onto the train and was going to blow it up. I don't know why I came to this, and I don't know why it ran so heavily, but it ran to a point where I went through this girl's stuff trying to figure out what it was that was in these boxes, which makes me a bad person. I know that. I go through these boxes, and it's nothing but grapes. It's more than okay, and I shove her little grape bombs underneath the seat. And I try to go to bed. I was up for 6 hours. This pill did nothing to me. It would not knock me out. I tried sleeping on the floor of the train. I tried sleeping in the seats. I tried sitting in upright positions. I tried getting on my knees and laying my head on the seat. I could not go to bed, and I felt awful the entire time. Finally, it's about maybe 6 or 7 hours into the trip, and I go to bed. I can finally get some sleep. I was out for probably about 20 minutes based on what it looked like outside when I went to bed and what it looked like outside when I woke up. The reason I woke up was because Grape Lady came back and asked for her grapes. Okay, so I get under the seat and I grab her grapes and I give them to her. And I realize at that point the train had stopped and people were getting off. As soon as I give her her grapes, the exertion from bending over and picking those up, they made my stomach very, very queasy. And I realized I was going to throw up. I stand up, I leave my sandals, I get all those clothes off me, and I run towards the back. And conveniently, the exit is in front of the bathroom. So the exit, where all these people are crowded around trying to get out, on the opposite side of them is the bathroom. I'm trying to push my way through, and it's just not working. I come out of this, and I sit back down in the last seat, and I'm just breathing. And I'm trying to breathe it through. You're going to be okay. Don't worry about this. You're not going to throw up. You're going to be okay. You just deal with it for another couple minutes, and everyone will be off the train. You can go to the bathroom. And right at that second, I cough. And you know what kind of cough it is. I get up, and I'm shoving my way through all these people. I get halfway, and bam, I'm out. I lose consciousness, and I pass out. Couple seconds later, I wake up, I come to, and my arm is up here. I'm grabbed onto something. As I had fallen, I must have just out of reaction, just grabbed something. And I'm looking up, I'm sweating profusely, and I kind of look up, and I notice that I've attached myself to some poor young lady's butt pocket of her jeans. I've grabbed this girl's butt, trying to save myself from falling over, and I looked up, and I noticed her look down and then look away from me, like she was very worried by what was going on. But she just left my hand there. She didn't get upset or anything. So I let her go, and I didn't have the strength to even apologize. I just got up, and I made my way to the bathroom. I opened the door, and you remember I left my shoes back in my seat. There was a half an inch puddle of just brown liquid all over the ground. I jump in there and I vomit. And I turn around and I do other stuff. And I turn around and I vomit again. And it's awful. One of the worst experiences ever. I look at myself and I'm just dirty. I was on my knees. My knees are dirty. It was on my feet. My feet are dirty. this toilet is awful, and I'm looking around and I'm like, where's the soap? Where's a washroom? Where can I clean myself off? And there's nothing. I exit the bathroom and I look over and there's a sink. And right in front of the sink, there's this dude brushing his teeth for, and I counted, I had my watch, 8.5 minutes. He sat there and brushed his teeth while I'm sitting there dirty and angry and sad and very sick. I go back to my seat. I got no sleep. And we finally make it to Danang. Now, Danang had a lot to offer. It was also one of my favorite places in Vietnam. Very beautiful. And I will tell those stories in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you next time.